All right, let's go. Welcome to another episode of Critical Weight Theory, where, sometimes I want to present ideas about living a more thoughtful life or whatever you want to call it, some self help type of crap. And today we're going to be exploring the small questions that often have the biggest impact on how we live. So, in case you didn't guess, I'm Wade. That's my name, hence the critical Wade theory jokey kind of title. And today we're deep diving, as people so often say, into a topic that many of us may have wondered about. Is it normal not to go out that often? To mostly just be an inside dog, as I often say. Whether you're an introvert, a homebody, or just questioning your lifestyle, this episode is for you. And, another way to phrase it is that I'm not a social butterfly, or, you can say I'm a lone wolf, bunch of animal type wordage you could apply to the situation to make it cute. So I often think about going out and doing something, but then say, nah, it's just not for me. I'm just gonna stay home today, and then I second guess that, and I'm wondering if maybe I should be going out more, and yada yada yada. Then I look at the news and I see a bunch of morons and all kinds of stuff. I see people that I don't like when I go out sometimes, and sometimes it seems like I only see people that I don't care for when I go out. If I know the people or whatever, it's one of those things where I'm like, is anything good gonna happen? I sometimes have exciting things happen, but it's rarely a good sort of excitement. So maybe you're in that same boat. I know that will sound pessimistic, everything I just said there, but nevertheless, that's how it sometimes goes. And isn't that the truth for many of us? The choices we make about how often we go out or don't often feel personal, even private. But today I'm going to kind of spill the beans on it a little bit. If that saying even makes sense, spill the beans on it. I don't know. But, let's look back at what is normal. Is it normal to stay inside, or should you be an extrovert and just constantly be a social presence, a social butterfly, and all that jazz. So, the short answer is that normal is relative, of course. What works for one person might not work for another. So, it's a good idea, for example, to think about why people stay in before you like finger wag and say, "Oh, you should be getting out more. It's so pathetic for you to uh, stay inside all the time, yada yada yada. You need the exercise, even though you can get an exercise bike or whatever, uh, one of those machines that just moves and you run on it. I can't even think of what they're called, but oh, a treadmill, I guess. Yeah, yeah. So you can feel like a gerbil on a treadmill. You can do that in your house. And, you can, of course, run around your house if if you're into that sort of thing, and if you have enough space. So let's start with the personal preference angle. If you're an introvert or someone who enjoys solitary activities, staying in can be more fulfilling than going out. Generally speaking, there's a bit of a false dichotomy here. Of course, it's not like I never enjoy going out. In fact, I do have a few days out of the week where I'm possibly going to do some social activities. I go to trivia night, for example, and that would be one example. And I also have a little DJ gig that I do as a hobby on Wednesday nights for the college radio station WMTU 91.9 FM. That's from 6 to 8 p.m. if anyone out there wants to listen. You could find the stream online during that time, well, at least when I'm there. And, well, actually, You can listen to it even when I'm not there. Now that I think about it. But anyway, what does it mean when we just choose to limit our external activities? It means that if you're happiest puttering around at home, engaging in hobbies, or simply relaxing, then maybe staying in is exactly what you need, you know? You don't really need to be phased that much by judgments. Of course, a solid argument could be made, a solid case, that yeah, you should go outside a little bit just to get some sunshine or whatever. And occasionally, I always look at it as, I'm just going to give people a chance because I owe it to people sometimes, and I owe it to myself to be able to say, hey, I gave people a shot, and they don't always disappoint me. I can't. I'm not that negative that I'm going to say, oh, I only ever have bad experiences. But personal preferences, they're not the only factor either. Circumstances can play a role. If you've got a work from home arrangement, you've got caregiving responsibilities, there are financial constraints like you're broke as a bum, you can't even afford to go anywhere or whatever, or buy anything, or transportation issues, they can all make staying in more practical or even necessary. And another one is, of course, is the health concerns or bad weather. They often keep people indoors. If you're just not in the greatest of health, you might not have a choice. So you might have to just stay inside most of the time, if not all of the time. And of course, there are different social needs and cultural norms that will be a factor here too. Not everyone stays in because they want to. Social needs are another piece of the puzzle. If you're content with your relationships, whether online or in person, you might not feel the need to go out often. But if loneliness or isolation creeps in, that's worth reflecting on. Small connections can go a long way in boosting our well being. So sometimes going out can make you feel less lonely or less isolated. It really depends on how things go. I obviously can't say it's a cure all or anything like that. Sometimes I go outside and I end up in a worse mood because I had a bad experience with people. Other times I'll be in a better mood. And it's a it's a thing that's really contingent on what actually is happening. And there's the influence of culture and environment. Some communities, or I guess you could even say countries, emphasize socializing outside of the home more than others. Urban settings, for example, they offer more opportunities to go out compared to rural or suburban areas. But even here, the question of normal remains deeply personal. Even if you're in sort of a rural area, it doesn't mean you can't go out at all. At the very least, there's probably a local bar or something like that. And, you can hang around with your fellow drunks or whatever the hell. And, you still get a chance to make a decision under most circumstances, of course. So here's another important point. If staying in feels like a choice and you're happy, there's really no problem with it. Maybe you can quit smoking or get care for depression by developing a fun hobby at home, which natural introverts might find easier than being in a crowded room with a bunch of people. And you might be able to focus on self-improvement in some way. Or of course you can not improve and just stay home. Either way, I'm not saying you're going to necessarily make a revolutionary life choice just because you've decided to go it alone for another day, but you know there's at least an opportunity in a lot of cases for you to kind of snap your fingers and say, hey, you know what, I'm going to do something different today. I'm going to maybe try something new. And sometimes you can do that while just sitting your butt down at home. It's also true that addressing underlying challenges can transform how we approach life. If we spend some time alone, it can sometimes give us more time to improve ourselves and our understanding of the world. Like you can read a history book or something like that, or a biography, or any number of things that you're probably not going to be able to do in a crowded bar room or something like that. You can you can watch movies and TV shows or whatever, stereotypical lazy kind of stuff. But you can still actually learn things from movies and TV shows as well. And that's one thing I've found out when I've been writing about these things. You actually do gain some insight into the world. It's not necessarily that you just rot your brain every time you watch a movie or a TV show. In fact, I've even argued in the past that even a show like Beavis and Butthead, which was known for, rotting people's brains or whatever, corrupting the youth, even that show actually has some intelligent social commentary. And I know that sounds like BS, but go ahead and watch, you know, a number of episodes of that, and you'll see, oh, they actually do have some funny critiques of society on this dumb little show. Um, but balance is the key here. Spending time indoors can be nurturing, but stepping outside into nature, into what are called green spaces, or even just a neighborhood walk can be equally enriching. Sometimes, it's a good thing to do. Studies even show that exposure to green spaces is linked to less screen time for children and more opportunities for physical activity. So your kids are, if you have kids, they're less likely to be lazy or whatever. Uh, they're a little more likely to put their phones down if they are outside and doing some social activities from time to time. And that's really part of the larger perspective too, is just mixing it up. Sometimes if you're overly organized like I am, when it comes to scheduling, you know, you might want to schedule the occasional day out, but also have a day where you're basically staying inside. So this brings me to a broader thought. Just like nations, we as individuals carry responsibilities, not just for ourselves, but for how we shape the spaces around us. So, to some degree, I think we probably should feel obligated to at least sometimes go out and interact and shape the world and, try to make at least a slight positive impact. I mean, it's really the least we can do. It's the least we can do, even if society has wronged us in some way. It's still kind of a good idea to try to set a good example, and you can really best do that by occasionally interacting with people in a positive way. And I'm sure there are people out there who know me who'd be like, "Oh, you failed out that miserably. You actually suck," or what, or whatever they might say. But I think the point remains anyway. Whether I live up to it or not. It's just a sensible thing to sometimes go out and you know try to have sway over this rotten world we live in and maybe improve a thing or two. So that about wraps it up here. How do you feel about staying in yourself? Does it feel like a choice or something you're forced into? The answer may hold clues about how to balance comfort and exploration in your life. So, if today's topic resonated with you, or if you agree with me or disagree with anything, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Kind of. I mean, so long as they're not so ridiculously awful that I'm like, oh, this person sucks. They're abysmal. But I mean, if you're halfway decent, I'd love to hear your thoughts, some honest disagreements or agreements. So, how do you find balance between staying in and going out? Are there any tips you've discovered for making the most of your time wherever you choose to spend it? You can share your story with me at wadewinio@gmail.com, or if you stumble upon my social media handles or you're out there stalking me for some weird reason, you can let me know on Facebook I'm on Blue Sky now because I'm not using the X nonsense nearly as much. But I'm also on Mastodon and Tribal, Tribel. That's one of the newer social networks that really isn't getting as much attention as some of the other ones, but I am on there if you want to track me down and, you know, throw some thoughts my way. And if you're wondering how to enjoy your time indoors or start venturing out, stay tuned for more episodes of Critical Aid Theory, where I will at least occasionally, you know, dish out some information on things you can do here and there, because suddenly I'm trying to be a self help type guru or whatever the hell. So until next time, take care and remember your version of normal is really what matters most. This has been Critical Weight Theory, and you know, that's all I need to say about it. I've said enough as it is, and have yourself a wonderful day, if at all possible.